In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to build this calculator you see here right from the scratch. So if you enter, let's say 12 plus 12 or 12 plus whatever equals, it gives you the right answer. You can clear your screen. 45 minus 6, it gives you the answer. So this is a simple calculator in Python, but even a complex scientific calculator also uses this approach we are going to be using today. So I'm going to show you step by step from a blank page. We are going to build this calculator. This very calculator, this is the code right here, right? The code is also complete and is available in GitHub in my repository. You can find me on GitHub using the link. Follow me on GitHub or Instagram or anywhere, and feel free to follow this tutorial. It's so interesting. And after now, we are going to move on to more complex calculator or UIs like scientific operations. Also want to recommend you subscribe to my channel, like this video, and also leave me a comment if you have specifically something you need me to work on. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead to start from the scratch. So let's go to start from an empty page. And this is the step by step, but here I'm going to show you what we call the layout. Okay, so this is the layout we are going to use. Python GUI, which is built using a module called Tkinter. It works in a grid layout, uses a grid layout. So I want to recommend anytime you're working in a UI, please try to make a mock-up like this so that you'll be able to have a visual of what you are trying to build, what the final output of your program will look like. So basically here we have the display. The first one, I call it the root frame, which is what we have outside here. The size will be 600 by 650. Actually, this root frame is inside the GUI, is inside the window. So inside this root frame, we have two frames, one for the display and one for the keypad. Inside the keypad frame, we have one display for the number and one display for the sign. So we have this frame here for the signs and this frame for the numbers. So let's go ahead to start coding this step by step so that you actually experience how it flows. So the first thing you want to do is to import Tkinter as TK. So the thing we're going to do now is to create the window. So that's always the first thing you want to do is to say window is equal to tk.tk. So this creates your first window. But at this point, if I run this program, nothing happens. So we're also going to specify the title of the window. Windows normally have titles. So I'm going to say window. And I also like to give this window a size. Window.geometry is going to be 600 by 650. I think I mentioned it. Now the geometry of the window is what I specified, not the geometry of the frame. So I think this is like a mix-up. Okay, so at this point, if I run this application, what happens? So if I run it, if I right click and run it, for instance, actually nothing happens because we actually need to do one more step, and that step is called to pack. So I'm going to say window.pack, actually not window.pack, window.main loop. So it's more or less starts an infinite loop to wait for user input. So if I run it now, we should have this UI created. So for now, nothing is in here, but at least we have something showing up. So the next thing I want to do at this point is to start creating the frames we mentioned. So to create a frame, you are going to use the frame function. So I'm going to just say the root frame. I'm going to create now root frame is equal to frame, tk.frame, and you specify the parent of the frame. In this case is a window. Okay, so we've created a root frame, and now if I run this application one more time, actually nothing happens. It's the same because this frame I created occupied the whole window. So the next thing I want to do now is to create the display frame, actually where the screen will be displayed. So I'm going to call it display frame is equal to tk.display dot label frame. So in this case, I'm creating a label frame, and the parent of this frame is going to be the root frame. Size of this frame is going to be the width. Width is equal to 400, and the height is equal to 80. And the height is equal to 80. So let's check to see what happens. So if I run this application one more time and nothing happens. Nothing happens because we need to specify the position of this frame in the parent. So I'm going to say display frame.grid, and I'm going to position it at row 0, column 0. Row is equal to, and I'm going to add a padding. I'm going to call it pad y. So pad y specifies the margin of this frame, the top and bottom margin. So it takes a tuple of 2 items. I'm going to use 10 and 10. And for this frame to actually display, because for now it will not display, we are actually going to use a function called, grid propagate. So I'm going to say display frame.grid propagate and specify 0. So this ensures that the size you specified for the display frame, the Tkinter engine takes the size you specified. So that's why we call propagate. If not, it's going to use default size of filling the whole parent. So at this point, if I run it, nothing also shows. So in the same way, I'm going to create the other 4 frames using exactly the same method I created. So the next frame I'm going to create we have the display frame and we have the keypad frame. So I'm going to create a keypad frame is equal to tk dot is a label frame, and the parent frame is going to be the root frame. The width in this case is going to be 400, and the height is going to be 450. We are going to also use the same thing. So we are going to, in this case, we are going to place it in row 1, column 0. So display keypad frame is equal to tk dot label frame. The parent is going to be root frame. The width, this time the width is going to be 400, the same width, but the height will be much more. So what I wanted to do is the keypad frame dot grid, and I'm positioning it at row 1, column 4 to 0, and we are going to put a padding here, and the padding is going to be padding on the x, the padding on the right, pad x, and left is going to be 10px, and the padding for the top and the bottom is going to be 10. And then we are going to also do a grid propagate. Okay, so we have the 2 frames, and now we are going to create 2 more frames. The numbers frame. So we created the root frame, which is this one. We created the display frame. We created the keypad frame. Now inside the keypad frame, we are going to create the numbers frame and the symbols frame. So I'm going to just quickly create it. Actually, I'm just going to paste it. Now we are going to do a root frame.pack. So the root frame, the very first frame we created, we're going to call a pack so that it could show up. So root frame.pack. And at this point, we should expect to see something on the screen. So if I run this application now, I see that I have the frames exactly set up the way I expected it to be. Don't worry, we are going to enhance it a little bit. So this is exactly what you expect to see. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to display where we have the screen, right? So let's go to display the screen. So every other thing we are going to be doing will be inside this part of the code. So the screen. So the screen is also going to be this time a text box. So I'm going to call it display box. It's going to be text, right? It's going to be text, and it's going to have a parent to be the parent is going to be display frame. The width, let's give it a width of 20 and a height 1 equal to 1, meaning that it's a single line text box. And we are going to have also use the grid to position it in the parent. So why do we need to import the text. So dot grid, and we are going to position it at row equal to 0, column 0 as well. So we give it row 0, column 0, and we give it, yeah, at row 0, column 0, that's where it is, and we have put some padding on it. The pad x is equal to padding to be 25, and of course let's try to use the top and bottom padding to be 20 and 5 as well, so it displays well inside the frame. So let's try to run it to see if it comes. So you see the text box displays here, but it's not exactly fine, so we are going to give it like a size. So let's give it a size to make it look better. So we are going to give it a size. So font size is going to be provided, giving us font is equal to, so I'm going to give it Helvetica. I think this is correct spelling, Helvetica, and the size should be 30. So if I run it now, I think it should give us a better display. So if you look at it now, we have a better display. Okay, so let's go to work on the buttons, right? We now want to add the buttons inside the numbers frame, right? So the number buttons is simply button, right? So let's start with button 1 is equal to, so I'm going to say tk.button, and you need to specify where you want this button to be. So it's going to be, the parent is going to be number frame. The text on this button is going to be 1. You just want 1 to be there. We want a height and width of 3, H-E-I-G-H-T, height of 3 and width of 3, a height and 3 and a width of 3, and we want to place this button at a certain row 0, column 0. So let's also add a little padding so that it doesn't lap on the wall of the frame. So let's see if this button actually displays. So I'm going to just run it one more time, and you see that the button displays, but nothing happens when I click on it. So what I'm going to do now is to actually copy across every other button. So button 2, 3, 4 all the way. Okay, so let's see how many we have. So we are simply going to be changing it from button 2, this 2, this is 3, this is 3. Okay, so I've created all the buttons for the for the keypad. So let's just run it to see how it looks. Okay, so it doesn't look well because I need to change the row and column settings. So all of them are in row 0, column 0. So this is going to be, all this is row 0, this is going to be column 1, this is going to be column 2, and this is going to be row 1. Okay, so I just changed all the rows and column settings. So let's run it to see what we have. So you can see it looks a little better right now. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to create the sign button. So these are also just buttons. So I'm going to call it button add, button subtract, button multiply, and button divide. So I'm going to call it button adds is equal to tk.button, and the is going to be in the signs frame, right? It's going to be in the signs frame, and the text is going to be, in this case, we want to start with addition. The text is going to be addition, and the height is equal to 3, and the width is equal to 3. I normally like checking that let's see, yeah. So we're also going to place it in the grid. Button add.grid and specify row is equal to, it's going to be row 0, and column is equal to 0 as well. And we are going to add, I think I need to add a padding. So I've just added one single sign, and we are going to run it to see. You can see that we have the plus sign here. So what I'm going to do, so I don't waste time, so I'm going to copy and paste across. Okay, so I've set up all the signs, but it seems I need to adjust the columns. So this is going to be column 0, this is going to be column 1, column 2, column 3. So I'm running it now, and it's giving us this 0. Okay, so we actually should place it in different rows, right? So it's actually going to be row 1, row 2, and row 3. For the columns will be constant to be column 0. So let's run it to see what we have. So now we have the buttons displayed. Nothing happens for now, but we are going to fix this in a minute. Okay, so now I want to change the fonts to be a little bit bigger, right? And in this case, I could actually go to different buttons to change the font sizes, but I think it's better we use a loop to loop through the content of each of the frame and change the font size of the buttons at once. So the button font we want to use, so I'm just going to create a font. The font we want to use is font.font. I think we have to import this, tk.font. And I want to use a font size of 20. And I want to use a weight. I want it to be bold. And I want the font family to be Helvetica, I think. So this is the font I want to apply to all the buttons. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to apply this font to all the buttons in a given frame. So let me just put a comment here. So how do we apply this font to all the buttons, for instance, in the numbers frame? We have the numbers frame, right? So let's try. So we are going to start a loop. I'm going to say for button we are going to say numbers frame. For buttons in numbers frame dot win info dot children. So this is the syntax. We are going to then apply the font to be the font we created. So it's going to be the button font. So if I run this application now, and if I come right here, you can see there's some mix up here. We're going to fix it. But you can see that at least that the button applied, the bold applied to these buttons, as you can see. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing for the science frame. So I'm going to say for button in science, not multiprocessing. For button in science frame dot win info children button font equals button font. Now, if I run it, it works. So if you look at this, you'll see that we have a problem here. We have two solutions. We can actually make the frame, the inner frame for the numbers frame, we can just make it a little bit bigger, right? So we can make the numbers frame a little bit bigger. So let's see, 280 for instance. Let's see. So we have the numbers frame works now, okay? So we're also going to increase the keypad frame a little bit. So where is the keypad frame? The width, let's say 420 for instance. So I think I mixed up something, but for you, I think you have to just make sure you have the correct layout before you start. So I think for now we fixed it. So this is what we have at this point. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to display what is clicked, the button that is clicked. We want to display it on the screen, right? We want to display the clicked button on the screen. So what do? We have to write a function that takes the button and the button text and displays it on the screen. And let's call that function to be show. Let's call it def show, and it takes a parameter num, and now we want to display something on the screen. Where is our screen? Our screen is the let's see. So our screen is the display box. We want to display something inside the display box. How do we do this? That's a question. So how we do this is to say display box.insert, and we specify this item we want to insert, right? Okay, so now we want in such a way that when we click a button, let's say button 1, this is button 1, we want to insert that number that was clicked into the display. So I'm going to add to the button a command. So here where I define my button, I'm going to add a command. It's going to be lambda, and the lambda will take a parameter num is equal to 1, which is in this case we are at 1, and then it's going to call the show function, show, and also give it the same 1. So let me collapse this so that we see exactly what is happening. So we have a command, it's lambda, it takes a parameter num of value 1 and passes it along to the show function. And this happens when the button is clicked, right? So let's try it out to see if something happens. So now I have my calculator. So let's click 1. Nothing happens. Okay, so when we want to display, we want to specify, when we say insert in the display box, we want to specify where to insert. So we are going to insert it at the end. So this is what is required in Tkinter. You need to specify the end. So I'm going to import tkinter.end, right? So if I run the program again now, I expect to get an output. So click on 1, you click it again, it keeps inserting, right? Later we are going to code the clear button to be able to clear the display. So now that you know how it works, we are simply going to copy everything across, right? So we are going to copy across this from here and paste it in all our buttons. So we are going to paste it in all our buttons. Okay, so now the other buttons like clear, equals, signs, they all behave in a different way. So for now, we are going to leave them out. So we are going to simply change, this is 2. Okay, so I think we're on track. Let's just run it just to make sure everything works as expected. So let's click on 1, 1 works, so I'm going to delete, 2 works, 6 works, 9 works, 0. So everything works as expected for now. Okay, so the next thing I would like us to do is to code the clear button. So actually, when you click on clear, you want to clear the screen of what is displayed. And to do that, I want to write the function. I think it's just easy. So we are going to just write a function called clear, def clear, and it simply says display box dot delete, I think, dot delete. So when you call delete, you simply specify the position where you want to start to delete, which is 1.0, want to delete all the way to the end. So I don't know why Tkinter requires us to do this. And we are going to go to the clear button and specify, and this is the button, right? So I'm going to specify that the command is equal to lambda and I'm going to clear. Okay, so at this point, when we click on the clear button, I should actually clear whatever is in there. So if I type 1, 2, 3 and click on clear, so the clear button works so far. So the next thing I want us to do is to code the assign button. Now this is very, very important to understand what is happening. Let me run this code again. So when you actually enter some number here, you want to click on plus or minus, then you specify the second operand. So you click on the first number, click on the operator, click on the second number, and then click on equals, and it displays the result. So when we click on the plus, actually it should capture the first number that was clicked, and it should capture the content of the display and place it in a variable, and then capture the operation as well, or the operand. Sorry, capture the operator as well. So let's write that function. First, we need 3 variables that we hold the 2 operands and the operator. So I'm going to create 3 global variables. To create a global variable, you use global. So I'll call it num1. I'm going to call it global. Create a second one, global num2, and operator, right? So we have three items. So when we click on assign, right? When we click on assign, we want to assign num1 and we also want to assign the operator. So I'm going to create a function assign, and assign takes the sign because we use the sign to assign the operator. So we are going to say operator is equal to the sign that was passed in, and the num1 will be the content of the display box. So I'm going to say display box dot get, and I'm going to get the content of this display box from position 1.0. I don't really understand exactly why Python Tkinter requires us to write this syntax this way, but we just have to do it. Okay, so let's now, after clicking on the sign, you want to clear the screen so that the user can enter another number. So I'm going to call the clear. The next thing we want to do is to go to the sign and give it this command. So I'm going to just say command is equal to, and it's going to be lambda, and it's going to be sign is equal to, in this case the sign is plus, I think, and we are going to call assign, I think, and give it the sign plus. All right. It's complaining for what? Why are you complaining? Command equal to, do I miss something? Lambda, and yeah, okay, sign here, it should not be, oh, this, okay. So I'm going to simply copy this across the other signs and just paste them there. So here we need to specify, I think this one will be subtract, this one will be subtract, this one will be subtract, and this one will be subtract, and this is going to be divide. Okay, so why do we have, I think we can safely ignore all this for now. So when we click on assign, actually nothing much happens except that it will clear the screen and save all those variables. So if I run this code now and I click on a number and click on assign, it clears it. Nothing happens because we need to specify the second number. If I specify the second number and say equals, nothing happens because we've not coded the equal sign. So the next thing we want to do now is to code the equal sign, and the function I would like to use in this case is to be, I'll call it calculate, right? So I'm going to, by the way, there's something you need to know. So you have these operands, they are, these operands, these variables here, they are local. So to force it to use the global one, so I'm going to just call the global on up. So I'm also going to call the global on num1. So it will force it to use the global variable instead of creating a new one, because when you are clicking assign, you want to keep the numbers that has been selected so that when you click on calculate, it's going to use those variables that is existing globally. So let's create the calculate. Calculate will take num2, I think, or yeah, num2, but let's call the parameter num, all right? So now this is very important, and it's using the global, it's going to assign the global as well. We have num2, which is, remember, we are using this global variable, which will be assigned from the local one, which will be assigned from the argument passed to this function. So I'm going to assign it as argument passed. So it's going to be num. It's going to be num. Let's see. So when we click on calculate, actually you don't take anything. You are going to read the number from the screen, sorry. So I'm going to say display box.gets, and we are going to get what is in there, right? So I'm going to go from 1.0 all the way to and 1C. I think that is it. So that's the syntax required for Tkinter. And the calculate will be using the global variables. So we assign global num2. We also need the operator. Operator already is existing because operator was assigned when we click on the sign. So when you click on calculate, it's going to check that global variable available. So global op. Now, what operation we are going to perform will depend on this operator, right? And by the way, we need to initialize results to 0 for now, just in case. Let's initialize. So the operation we are going to perform will depend on what this operator is. So we are going to use an if-else statement. If operator is equal to plus, we are going to perform an addition, right? We are going to return result is equal to float num1 plus num2. Yeah, we are floating because we are using floating point because we are not sure. Yeah, we don't, if it's floating point, that takes care of both integers and floating points as well. Later on, we are going to be talking about decimal when we are going to enhance or add more features to this calculator. So we have result is equal to, I'm going to do an elif operator is equal to minus. Actually, we'll just copy everything and paste. So if it's plus, is minus, is and then we are going to display the result to the screen after we've cleared the screen. So let's clear the screen and then display the new result. And we are going to just display the new result. Display box.insert. We are going to insert at the end, and we are going to insert the result. Okay, so at this point we insert the result on the display, right? So we've completed the building of the calculator, but let's see if it actually works, because building is one thing, actually the calculator working is another thing. So I'm going to simply run it and it comes up. So let's do 12 plus 6 equals. Yeah, so we need to assign the calculate to the equals button. So let's go to equals. Command is equal to lambda and it's going to be calculate. That's all. So this is all we need to do. I'm going to just say file, save all. Actually, I don't need to save it, to save automatically. So if I run it now, and let's try 12 plus 3 equals 15. I'm going to clear my screen. 56 minus 8 equals, it works. Clear my screen. 89 times 2 equals, it works as well. What happened? Wait, I think, did I say 89 times, let's say times 6. 89 times 6 cannot be 83. So this is, let's correct this. That we have a mix up here. We have a minus here and we have a multiply here. So let's just test our multiply one more time. 56 times 8 equals what? So this is a basic calculator built in Tkinter GUI in Python. It's a basic one, and now the complete code you can find on my GitHub repository. And I'd like to recommend you check out my channel in the next week. I'm going to update this calculator to more advanced calculator. And also the link to the step-by-step of this tutorial is also provided in the description box of this video below. I'd like to stop here for now. I'd like to thank you for viewing. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share, and also leave me a comment if it's been informative for you. I remain Keypad the Tech Pro, and I'm always there for you.